Hey everybody, Smooth Terrorist back up in it. And I've got a private message here from a gentleman named Darth Vadant 2. And he says, "Hello, do you think you could create a video about ethnic and nationalistic pride? I would want to know what your outlook is on it." Well, that is quite a request to make, because that's such a huge topic that I could talk about it for 5 minutes, or I could talk about it for 5 years. I mean, what do you want me to talk about? The Peloponnesian War? Do you want me to talk about the Cold War? God, that's just such a big can of worms. Not to mention that tribalism is my enemy number one. I mean, that is the focus of my life. If I'm Don Quixote, that is the fucking windmill that I tilt against. That is my raison d'etre is to destroy that human tendency in any way possible. But sure, I'll spend some time talking. I'll try to give you what you want, Darth Vader. I'll make a little video about it. I got shit else to do right now. Actually, there are other things I could be doing, but I aim to please. I think that first of all, let's define our terms and figure out what it is that we're really talking about here. Because when you talk about ethnic pride and nationalistic pride, I think that along with religious identification, political identification for every other type apart from true anarchists, and that includes the fake anarchists like anarcho-communists, anarcho-capitalists, blah, 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 blah. I think all of these things can fall under the rubric of tribalism. And we just save time and effort and just call it tribalism, because that's what it is. I am not, I realize that this isn't 2009 anymore, and I'm not grandstanding for a bunch of retards. I know that I have a very intelligent, savvy, pretty educated audience now. So I'm not going to condescend to you guys by talking about why tribalism is a bad thing, why ethnic pride is a bad thing, why national pride is a bad thing, because I think most of you guys already understand that, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be watching my videos. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some observations that I've made about it, and I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why we as human beings are that way. Now, if you study evolutionary biology theory, and granted, let's admit right off the bat that evolutionary biology is one of the softer sciences, okay? And I know there's a whole bunch of people right now going, "Oh, what are you talking about, Smooth Terrorist? Oh, rubble, 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 rubble." Hey, guys, it is, okay? We're not talking about physics here. We're not talking about chemistry here, you know what I'm saying? This is evolutionary biology. Most of this shit is theory, just like psychology. Okay, it's soft science. And we need to fucking admit that in order to have a rational discussion. Like, we can't just fucking gloss over that. But that having been said, a lot of the theories of evolutionary biology, which I do find very convincing, and I do think they're evidentiary and based on observation of archaeological evidence and so forth, anthropological evidence, which we have available to us today. What a lot of those theories seem to show is that we've been left with evolutionary baggage. That is to say, instincts which fostered our greatest sense of, which fostered our greatest chance of survival in a bygone era. But most of them have become irrelevant to the world that we live in today, and have even become diametrically opposed to our greatest chance of survival today. And you can see this in so many areas, and tribalism is just one of them. But there's so many examples I could think of for this. Like let's consider sexual attraction, for example. Okay. Now there are a lot of examples where, like okay, let's talk about physical beauty. Okay. Physical beauty. Women are attracted to men that have like a muscular physique, right? Well, why is that? The reason is easy enough to understand from an evolutionary biology standpoint. It's because back in the hunter-gatherer days, if you selected a mate that was physically strong, it would foster the best chance for the offspring and yourself to survive, because that physically strong mate would be able to protect you from wild animals, protect you from other humans, from like another tribe that might try to hurt you. And also, of course, the stronger you are, the higher you are in the dominance hierarchy chain. So we're talking about more resources, more protection, right? But think about the world that we live in today. Women are still attracted to big muscles. They're no less attracted to big muscles than they were 5,000 years ago. But does that foster the greatest chance of survival today? I mean, look at who the alpha male dominant figures of our time are. Who are the most powerful, influential men? Bill Gates, Barack Obama. There are no bodybuilders in that group, except maybe with the exception of guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura. But I mean, I'm sure you get the point I'm making here. When you really think about it, every minute that a guy spends pumping iron at the gym is a minute that he could have spent researching the stock market, day trading, educating himself, doing things that would really foster their chance of survival in today's world. So that instinct has become, that attraction cue has become obsolete. And if you look at these guys, out here who have they have like 15 kids they're paying child support on, right? And they're deadbeat dads that don't pay their child support. Well, as Mr. 1001 Nights pointed out in one of his videos, why do women keep selecting that mate? Because obviously women keep on selecting this guy as a mate, even though he clearly is not a good provider. He clearly is not a good protector who fosters the best chance of survival. Clearly he's not very equipped to survive in today's world at all, because he can't afford to pay his child support, and yet he keeps getting laid over and over and over again. And the reason for that is because the attraction cues, and I don't know why I'm picking on women, because it's the same for men. I mean, the attraction cues that men are attracted to don't make as much sense in today's world as they did in the hunter-gatherer times, and in fact some of them are actually diametrically opposed to choices that would foster the greatest chance of survival for the offspring. Now let's look at let's take this off of sex, and let's look at money. When you really think about what money is a representation of an environment of scarcity. And that is to say, back in the day, back in the hunter-gatherer times, the human species' greatest threat was the natural environment. Our enemy was nature. But since then, we have learned to tame the natural environment. We have learned to control. We have an unprecedented level of control over our natural environment. So now the greatest enemy is us. Now the greatest enemy is ourselves. And yet we're still behaving like the environment is the enemy. And that's the reason why we pose this threat to ourselves. Let me give you an example, okay? Let me pull an example out of that. And I won't even go back as far as hunter-gatherer times. Let's just go back as far as medieval Europe, okay? Now, if you guys look at these viral videos on YouTube, these meme videos that everybody makes, I'm sure you guys have seen the ones where people put on 72 cotton t-shirts, and they'll write something different on each t-shirt, and then they take off all 72 shirts, and it keeps saying something else and saying something else. Well, in medieval Europe, only the wealthiest royalty could afford to have garments that were made out of cotton. And cotton was a luxury. It was breathable, it was comfortable on the skin. Only the richest people could afford to have it, whereas the peasant class would wear these garments made out of like rough, coarse material, that coarse fibers that would cause abrasions of the skin, abscesses. They'd have lice in them, they'd have fleas in them, and now, only a scant amount of time, really a scant amount of time later, if you want to be objective, any idiot with a webcam can wear 72 fucking cotton t-shirts to make a video. Which is something that even a medieval king in Europe would have been like, holy shit, you ballin', motherfucker. You living big, motherfucker. Look at you with your 72 t-shirts. And we have come so far. We've gone from living in a world of very scarce resources to living in a world of vast abundance. And you can tell that people have not made that switch just by engaging them in conversation on any of the issues that have to do with like, for example, let's take starvation in the third world. You bring up starvation in the third world, and we've all heard that guy that says, oh, well, what we need to do is engineer genetic food crops, that we can make genetically engineered food crops that'll feed the third world. And it's like, hey, buddy, guess what? There has never been a shortage of fucking food. There's more than enough food on the planet Earth to feed every man, woman, and child. The reason that there's starvation in the third world is not because there's a lack of food, there's starvation for political reasons. In other words, because of money. Because when the UN tries to do a relief drop and drop some food for starving people in Africa, let's say, warlords will seize that food, and they'll seize it, they'll sell it to the population, use it to buy arms, etc., so forth. So it's really not about a lack of resources. It's about the way that we allocate those resources. And the way that we do that is through money, which is a representation of status. It's a representation of dominance hierarchy. And it represents a bygone era where we lived in a world of scarce resources, where dominance hierarchies and value judgments made sense to a level that they don't anymore. Because you have to realize that as abundant as things are now, that's only going to increase. As our technology continues to increase, and it's increasing at an exponential rate, guys. As it continues to increase, abundance is also going to continue to increase. Okay? So, when you look at what money is, money represents an environment of scarcity, and you can see that in just by the fact that money itself is scarce. We don't have an abundance of money. We have a dearth of money. In order for capitalism is a zero, economics is like a zero-sum game. In order for me to have a dollar, then that means that you have to go without that dollar. And that doesn't make sense when there's more than enough. As Gandhi once said, how did that quote go? Gandhi said, the world has abundance enough for man's need, but not for man's greed. Or for each man's need, but not for each man's greed. Well, he was exactly right about that. I mean, when you think about it, market economies do not make sense in the world that we live in anymore, because there is enough for everybody. That wasn't always true. That really is a change. There was a time when there was not enough to go around. And maybe back then it made sense that, well, if we've only got enough resources for, let's say, 1/10 of the population to survive, then we want the 10th that survives to be the best. We want the 10th that survives to be the strongest, the smartest, the best in every way, so that it fosters the greatest chance of survival for the species. But in a world of abundance, where there's enough to go around for everybody, and that abundance is only going to continue to increase, it does not make sense to have this social Darwinistic attitude like we have to have the cream rise to the top, and you know, if you're not out there competing and stepping on everybody's face, then you just deserve to die. That doesn't make sense anymore. It's actually counterproductive. So I really do consider money itself to be a manifestation of evolutionary baggage, of an instinct that came down to us from hunter-gatherer days, which no longer makes sense in the world that we live in today. But let's get back to the issue of tribalism. Now, it's easy enough to understand why tribalism was a benefit back in the hunter-gatherer days. We all understand, we all understand strength in numbers. We understand the concept of strength in numbers. We understand how dominance hierarchies allow things to get done, like the fascists always make the trains run on time, as they used to say in Italy under Benito Mussolini's reign. Well, that's true. You know, fascists do make the trains run on time. Dominance hierarchies are great for getting things done. But do they produce the best results? Probably not. I would think that decisions that are made collectively and independent of any kind of dominance hierarchy structure tend to be better decisions. And, you know, I could try to give supporting examples for this, like open source software, etc., but I really don't feel like I should need to do that. I think most of the people in my audience understand. I think most of the people watching pretty much get that, and you're on board with it. And, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting timing that Darth Vader 2 asked me to make a video about tribalism now, because you guys probably haven't heard about this on the news, but like I said in other videos, I have friends in the military and they tell me things. And a few days ago, just this past week, a Russian Akula-class attack submarine was detected leaving the Gulf of Mexico, where it had been patrolling undetected for weeks. Now, why was that submarine detected as it was leaving? Obviously because it wanted to be detected, because we sure as hell didn't detect it coming in. So if we detected it leaving, it was because it wanted to be detected. So the Russians were basically sending Moscow was basically sending a message to Washington where they were saying, hey bitch, guess what? We can get through your defenses anytime we want to. And they're quite right about that. They've been doing this kind of thing increasingly lately. They had 2 attack submarines in our waters in 2009, and in the interim period between then and now, they've violated our airspace twice with their bombers. They flew a bomber in California airspace. They flew a bomber in Alaskan airspace, and you know, basically the upshot of this is that while the corporate media has had all you guys talking about gay marriage and chicken sandwiches, the Cold War has come back in a big way. You can see this with the proxy fight that we're having in Syria right now, because it has all the character of the proxy fights that we had during the hottest periods of the Cold War, like the Afghanistan in the 1980s, like South America in the 70s. You know, the Cold War is back in a big way. People talk about it like it's over, like, oh, thank God that Dr. Strangelove shit is over, and we're glad that's all in the past. No, it's not over. It never really left, and in a very real way, it's coming back. It's coming back into full swing. And you know, I mentioned this to a few people, and they treated it like a joke. Like, I mentioned this to a few people, and I actually had one guy say to me, "Oh, they found Red October." You guys think this is fucking funny? You really think this is a fucking joke? Let's talk a little bit about Akula attack submarines, okay? Advanced 2-layer titanium hull that can sink to extreme depths. It's super advanced liquid metal cooled nuclear reactor that's capable of producing extreme speed and maneuverability. These subs can take out our nuclear subs. They can outmaneuver them and destroy them. That's what they were designed to do. But let's talk about the launch capabilities. This type of sub has 4 launch tubes, which can be fired one at a time or simultaneously. And each one is equipped with a long-range cruise missile with a 200 kiloton nuclear yield. Now, how long range is long range? Well, from the position of that sub in the Gulf of Mexico, it would have been able to reach California. Now, would that actually occur? No, that would not occur, because we do have advanced missile defense technologies in place for precisely that reason. So, would they actually be able to level a densely populated U.S. city? No, probably not. But there's more than one fucking way to skin a cat, and the Russians know that. And let's say that they had decided to detonate one of those nukes in the upper atmosphere. They could have generated an electromagnetic pulse that would take out everything, every bit of technological infrastructure that we have. Your phone stops working, your computer stops working, the traffic signals stop working, your car won't start because it has an electronic starter and a computer chip in it. The power grid goes down, hospital equipment stops, everything stops. Everything stops, everything electric stops. And it's impossible to predict what the outcome of that would be realistically, because our society's level of dependence on technology is not fully understood. It's not fully known just how dependent we are on the technologies that we use. But I think I could make a pretty good guess about what would happen, and I think most of you guys could too. But forget about civil unrest in the United States, because the whole point of this video is that we're looking at the good of the species. Fuck just America. We're talking about the good of the human species here. That's what matters, not one nation. Well, what happens if the United States is brought to its knees? We already saw from the global financial collapse just how interdependent the global economy is. We found out that the ripples in the pond were actually tsunamis and tidal waves. And if the United States was brought to its knees that way, it could result in the same sort of outcome as when the Roman Empire collapsed and it cast Europe into the Dark Ages. As soon as the Roman Empire is gone, the Dark Ages just covered Europe, and there's no science, no education, no literacy, just fear, superstition, and violence for hundreds of years. That possibility exists. We could face the total collapse of civilization. And the Russians understand that. I mean, they don't really have a motivation to detonate an EMP pulse in the upper atmosphere. Because Russia suffered as much as any other country from the global financial collapse, so they understand. They know that by bringing us to our knees, they're not really doing themselves any favors. But nevertheless, not every decision that human beings make is a rational decision. And that's the really important thing to understand. Rationality has limits. Let's say that Vladimir Putin just decides to get a wild hair up his fucking ass. Like he's on a vodka bender that day, right? Well, whatever, he had a bad day. He broke up with his girlfriend. Yeah, you don't fucking know. Something happened. He's pissed off. And he just says, you know what? The time is now. I'm going to be the one that's remembered in the history books. Let's do this. there would not be, what's important for you guys to understand is that there would not be a goddamn thing that the United States government could do to prevent that catastrophe. Our missile defense shields might prevent cities from being leveled, but they cannot do shit about an EMP pulse. There is no defense against that. And guess what, guys? There's not going to be a countermeasure against that. And I love how everybody has this false sense of security and this hubris about the technology of the United States. Like, oh, we've got smart bombs, we've got Lockheed Martin unmanned aerial vehicles. You know, we're so technologically advanced, and the Russians are behind the times. Listen, guys. When you're talking about nuclear war, these technological advancements, this fancy modern Marvel's History Channel modern combat shit does not count for shit. I'm a proud owner of an AK-47 assault rifle. Do you know why it's called AK-47? Because it was invented in 1947. That rifle is a military antique. It belongs in the Smithsonian. It belongs in fucking museums, not on battlefields. So why do we still see it so widely used on battlefields around the world? Why do we see it still widely used by police forces and by criminals all over the world? Because it's as effective now as it was in 1947. The technology of killing people can only advance so far before you hit a limit. Sort of like the limit that they've hit in how small you can make computer chips. You know, they're a limit. And the point is, nuclear weapons are as much of a threat now as they were in the 1950s and the 1960s. It's not like technology has solved that problem. We don't have an effective countermeasure, guys. And you need to fucking drop this false sense of security. Like, oh, you know, and that's the problem. Most of you guys, and myself included, we were born under the threat of nuclear warfare. I was born in 1979. I mean, the Cold War had already been going on for such a long time that I don't know anything else. Most of you guys don't know anything else. And that's given us a false sense of security. Like, this is just the status quo. Nuclear weapons are just the status quo. That's just the way it is. Guess what, guys? No. We've had a sword of Damocles hanging over our fucking heads for 50 years, and it's still just waiting to drop. You know, I talk to people about this all the time, because this is something I think about every day, and they usually say, oh, you need to get in therapy, smooth terrorist. You must have some kind of mental problem. You must be clinically depressed if you're thinking about nuclear war all the time. Oh, really? Really? I'm the one that's crazy, motherfucker? I'm the one who's You guys are fucking insane for not caring about this shit. You guys are batshit fucking loony. Insane, crazy, driving Miss Daisy, bitch. This is real shit. It's just incredible to me that people don't take this threat seriously. And you don't. You really don't. Because if you did, you would accept the fact that humanity, our species, does not have time for a long adolescence. We have to grow up now. You know how, like, the privileged white kid from the suburbs, like, he turns 18 and he goes to college on, like, a let's say student loan aid or something, and his parents are always calling him on the phone like, hey honey, do you need us to send you a care package with some ramen noodles and a Family Guy DVD and a teddy bear? Do you have enough money for books? How's your car running? Is your car running okay? You need us to buy you a new car yet? You know, and then conversely, you get the the disadvantaged minority latchkey kid inner city youth who, when he turns 17, his parents say, get the fuck out of my house. Get the fuck out, you freeloading bitch. I'm tired of fucking paying for your food, paying for your fucking everything. Just get out, get out. It's time to face the real world. Well, most people seem to have this attitude like the human species is the suburban kid. And I'm here to tell you guys, we are the inner city kid. We don't have time to fucking have a long adolescence. We gotta grow up now. It is sink or swim. If we don't shed the entire concept of national identity, that is to say, the sense of self, which leads us to instead say, I am a human being, to say, I am an American, I am French, I am an Italian, I am a Russian. If we don't fucking get rid of that, if we don't stop doing that shit, our species does not have a future. We're gone. We're relegated to the dustbin of evolutionary history. Evolutionary history which won't exist anymore because there will be no species with the intelligence to record it. We're just done for if we don't let this go. If we don't outgrow tribalism. And it is precisely because of the threat of nuclear war that tribalism is an evolutionary instinct which has become diametrically opposed to fostering our greatest chance of survival in the world that we live in today. The time for anarchy is now. The time for atheism is fucking now, even though I don't want to force that because that's secular humanism and basically state religion. State religion, communism, it is a form of religion, guys. I know some of you don't think it is. Believe me, it is. The time has come to shed collective identity. The time has come to embrace individual identity. Cooperation, that's fine. You know, we can cooperate. We can work on projects together, guys. We can work together. That's great. That's fine. But viewing your sense of self, your sense of worth, as that which comes from your place in society, your place in your culture, your religion, your ethnic background, it's time to put away childish things. It's time for that shit to fucking stop, or we're dead. The doomsday clock is at a minute to midnight, guys, and no one's fucking thinking about it. It's like it's become a fucking joke. You know, I was actually able to do an internet search and find a couple mainstream corporate news articles about that nuclear attack sub that the Russians had in our waters just this week. But boy, that's like page D news. That's like fucking that's in the middle of the newspaper. So this should be front page news. God damn it! And instead, we're talking about chicken fucking sandwiches and gay marriage. Really? You know, this belief of mine that tribalism has become an evolutionary baggage, an instinct that's diametrically opposed to fostering our greatest chance of survival as a species today, this lies at the core of my political philosophy. This is why I am what I am, who I am. This is why I'm an anarchist. This is why I'm a fucking atheist. Because I take the threat of nuclear annihilation seriously. And most people, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. It's just incredible how you guys don't think about this. I mean, we have had so many near misses with destruction. And I'm not just talking about the big ones that you guys have heard of, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm talking about the stuff the media does not report on, like the Norwegian rocket incident. Most of you guys probably haven't even heard of the Norwegian rocket incident. Look that shit up sometime. The point is, there have been a ton of incidents like that. We have skirted near misses with destruction so many fucking times. And we're living on borrowed time. Now, we have two options if we want this species to survive. Either get rid of every nuclear weapon, yeah, right, or let go of national identity. And I understand that in order to do this, in order to defeat this enemy, I cannot do that by attacking people who display nationalistic tendencies or display ethnocentrism or display racial nationalistic tendencies of white nationalism, black nationalism, etc., so forth. I understand that I can't defeat those tendencies by attacking people. Like, let's say I were to bomb a government building or something. Let's say I did that. Let's say I, what difference would it make? The reason that we have a government like we do is because it's a representation of what the people believe. It's a representation of what the common man believes. And this is a battle of ideas. And in order to win this battle of ideas, we have to engage everyone. And that means I not only have to engage political radicals who are on the outside, on the fringe of the debate, like people who call themselves anarchists, whether they are or not, people who, radical leftists, radical right-wingers, but I also have to engage people in the military, I have to engage people in the government. In order for us to prevail, I can't just change the average Joe on the street's mind. I have to change Dick Cheney's mind. I have to change Ahmadinejad's mind. The leaders have to change their minds too. Everybody has to fucking change their mind. We have to accept that national identity, that ethnic pride, is something that's going to kill us. It's evolutionary baggage. It's an instinct which used to serve us, but it's now going to hurt us. And I told you that I was going to give some observations I've made. Well, I had an interesting one just a few months ago, actually, into the nature of tribalism. Because I was at work, and for those who don't know, I wear many hats. I do lots of things to support myself and just eke out a living, eke out a subsistence, because I don't want to be successful, because I think that would be encouraging capitalism and market economies, which I don't believe in. One of the things I do is I work in the Hollywood film industry, which I really fucking hate, because the messages of most of these movies are just fucking terrible and so counterproductive to what society needs. But it's, motherfucker gotta eat. I mean, I gotta keep myself in bandanas, right? So I'm at work, and I'm at the movie set, and it's lunchtime, and I'm sitting there eating my lunch, right? And this old timer comes up to me. Now, I'm a pale-skinned guy with red hair, freckles, and a big red nose and green eyes, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to fucking figure out I'm Irish. That's an observation that you can make right away. And this guy comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, are you going to go to the Irish Day Parade?" Because for those who don't know, which is probably most of you, New Orleans has an annual Irish Pride Parade, and it's like, it's not even St. Patrick's Day, it's like an additional Irish Day, Irish Pride, whatever the fuck. And this guy comes up to me and says, "So you're going to go to the Irish Day Parade?" And I said, "No, man, I'm not going to the Irish Day Parade." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were Irish. You just look Irish." And I said, "No, I am Irish. That's why I'm not going to the Irish Day Parade." And then he got this confused look on his face. He was like, "That doesn't make any sense. What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, if I was German or something, then I would go to the Irish Day Parade. But for an Irish guy to go to the Irish Day Parade, that would make me like a Nazi. I mean, why would I do that? Call me when it's Cinco de Mayo, and I'll go to that parade. I'll go to the Cinco de Mayo parade. I'll go to the French parade, the Francophone celebration parade, whatever. I'll go to Oktoberfest, you know, call me when it's time for that shit. But Irish Day, my pale fucking ass is staying home. I'm not gonna be the asshole that the very Irish looking guy at the Irish Day parade. That's like giving a concert and you're wearing, and like the lead singer is wearing the t-shirt of his own band. Like he's wearing his own band's t-shirt. I mean, you look like an asshole. You look like you've got your head up your ass. I'm not doing that. Now, I shit you not, guys. This dude started to lose his fucking temper, and I didn't even know him. He started getting pissed. And I was remaining very civil the whole time. I wasn't even using foul language. Well, yeah, I probably was using some. But this guy started to lose his fucking temper. He's like, "What's your problem? Don't you have any pride in who you are? Are you ashamed of who you are being Irish?" And I swear, this asshole starts talking about Northern Ireland and fucking Michael Collins and shit, like I don't know about it, like I'm fucking ignorant or something, pissing me off. And you know, I just tried to keep my cool and remain calm because it was making him more and more angry that I wasn't getting upset. And I said to him, "Look, you don't even know me. You don't know anything about me. I could be a fucking killer or a rapist or something for all you fucking know. You know nothing about me. So why is it so important for you that I be at this Irish Day parade? Why can't I just do what I want with my? Why can't I stay home that day? Why is this so goddamn important that you're losing your temper with me?" And you know what this guy said? I swear to God, this is what he said. He said, "Well, you know, my son and I had started to grow estranged, and we weren't talking as much as we used to. And then we started going to the Irish parade together, and we started exploring our heritage, our common heritage of what it means to be Irish, and it's put us closer together. And now my relationship with my son is better than it ever has been." So what essentially happened is, just by not wanting to go to the Irish Day parade, just by not caring about my heritage, which I fucking don't at all, I don't give a shit, I don't give a fuck, that guy felt like I was attacking the love between him and his son. And I've seen the same thing with religion. If you criticize the ideas of a religion, people will think that you're like attacking their religious grandmother. Their parents were very religious. They think about all the Easter Sunday dinners they had. They think about all the midnight masses where they were holding hands with their family, sharing laughs with their families, having a good time. And they think about all that positive emotion, all that positive feeling, and they feel like you're dumping on that. They feel like you're dumping on their family, even though what you're dumping on is an idea that's abstract, that doesn't even exist. I mean, I think with national pride, or with ethnic pride, either one, what ends up happening is this sort of transference, this sort of fetishism, kind of like with sexual fetishism, instead of being attracted to the actual sex itself, your attraction gets misplaced onto these external factors which you associate with the sex, such as the fancy lingerie, sexy lingerie, or if you're George Costanza from Seinfeld, for a sandwich, for example, and it's the same kind of thing where instead of being attracted to the actual thing, it's like how can I put this? It's almost like a Pavlov's dog reaction. It's kind of like every time this guy was having positive feelings and interactions with his son, there happened to be some Irish shit going on. So it's like the bell ringing when Pavlov's dogs got to eat their food, and then every time they heard the bell ring, they started drooling like they were eating. It's the same kind of thing. He started to associate the love that he feels for his son with this thing that does not even exist called Ireland. This abstraction, this abstract idea. And what is Ireland? It's nothing. It's fucking lines on a map. It's just dirt. It's the same dirt that you find anywhere else on the planet. And Same goes for the United States, Russia, France, any country, any fucking country. They're abstractions. They do not exist. And the more interconnected the world becomes, economically and with communications technology, the more that should begin to be apparent to people. That countries are bogus. It's not even real. It's not even a real thing. I mean, you look at American culture, what do we have in common anymore? You know, Obama, in his keynote speech at the DNC convention before he became the nominee for president, I remember him saying, "There is no red America, there is no blue America, there's no right-wing America, there's no left-wing America, there is just the United States of America." But he was dead fucking wrong. There are definitely many different cultures within the United States, which, I mean, really, the culture war has gotten so deep, I could see another civil war happening. I think that's within the realm of possibility. But it just goes to show that the entire idea of a country is bogus. The entire idea of an ethnic culture, really, it's pretty much equally bogus. I mean, there's some objective things when you get to race. For example, you know, you're not going to find any white people with sickle cell anemia or any black guys with Tay-Sachs syndrome. You know, there are some real biological factors going on there, but for the most part, race is an idea. Ethnicity is an idea, and I think we all kind of understand that, don't we? So the point is, wow, this is probably a very long video, and thanks for giving me a topic Darth Vader to. I hope it lived up to your expectations. I don't know what kind of video you were expecting, but this is the best I can do. You know, the point is, a lot of the instincts that comprise human nature used to serve us, and they used to foster the greatest chance of survival in a bygone era. But today, they're diametrically opposed to our greatest chance of survival, and they're going to be what kills us. And tribalism, which is to say, national identity, ethnic identity, religious identity, hell, fucking maybe even gender identity. It's gonna kill us. Our technological advances in killing each other have reached a point where there's no room for this kind of thinking anymore. There's just no room for it. And if we don't grow past this, if we don't get past our adolescence as a species in a big goddamn hurry, we're doomed. There's no future. So this has been The Smooth Terrorist. If you enjoyed this video, then download it, re-upload it, mirror it, parody it, make it your own, because the tribalists at Google cannot censor me unless you let them. Keep it smooth.